a minute to give ourselves a moment to breathe that in. These pauses for integration. I was just lost in that beautiful melody. And opening that with the words of the songs that were that old Unity Joy songs, and claiming those truths for all of us, and then to let those truths sink in with that beautiful melody. Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you. And then as I opened my eyes and was doing open-eyed meditation as well as I listened, all the beauty of the nature all around us here. The openness to it with the windows and the doors, bringing it all together in oneness. The I am up above. And those songs claiming that I am that radiant light of God. Each of us are that radiant light of God. Joining our creative process with the creation all around us, the larger creation of the oneness of it all, honoring each piece of that, not diminishing what we bring to this planet, but knowing that it is just one radiant light, that when joined with each other and allowing ourselves to sink deeper with all around us, oh, what a difference we can make. Do you believe that? Do you know that? As we can know that and live that, we do bring that unstoppable energy of good, of love, of light, of presence to our world that is greater than any divisiveness we may see on our planet. So we just allow these few moments to really integrate that. So we bring ourselves back in consciousness from this sinking in place. To be fully present with a little more, perhaps, of our radiant light shining. And being ready to say yes to what is ours to do, moment by moment, this day. And for it all, and for each of us, and for each moment of this precious journey, we say thank you, God. And so it is. Amen. I was so fed before I stood up here. How about you all? It's like the words of the daily word and the music and the talking about Founders Day and you all being lay-led and how each of you are bringing your gifts to keep this beautiful space alive for all of us to enjoy. It just touched me that you're doing what I'm here to talk about today. And for me, and see if this is true for you, the more of the moments like that where we can really allow ourselves to sink in, to know these truths, to embody these truths, then I can live them more fully. How about you? I can let that creative process come through me a little more fully and not get caught up in any of my pettiness or divisiveness or judgments. And so as I was preparing for this, I was thinking of those places recently that have inspired me most. And those places of inspiration sometimes, often for me, come as a surprise. You know, I don't expect them. Some I expect, and I'm going to tell you about one I expected and one that I didn't expect at all. I was up in Cape Cod. And it was a week of New England at its best. There was no humidity. And every day was the beautiful blue sky, and going to the beach, and one day taking a ferry boat ride to Nantucket. And so we were on the ferry for an hour going and an hour coming. And as we were going out there, I'd never been to Nantucket before, I was just flooded with love. And it took me to a place of forgiveness for those places that I know I've talked about with you all here before, that sometimes linger on in me, that I've done all the work, but they still show up for me whenever I think about forgiveness. And I was just flooded with wanting the best for these people, which makes me the best as well. So that was one that it took me by surprise, the depth of that inspiration that came. But it wasn't surprise because it was out in nature and the beauty and the water, and I love all that. And I'm going to play a song for you that speaks to this, all of this today. And this song is by someone you all know, or some of you know, Don Necco, who comes and plays the piano for me sometimes when I've come. And he writes music. And sometimes that inspiration just floods him from nature, this place that I think probably feeds us all as we sit here in this beautiful chapel. And the song is called Love Lifts Me High. And he has a grand piano in his home that looks out over the mountains. So that's the history of this song. And then he submitted this song to the Tipperary International Concert for Peace. And one other time he was selected to be one of the 10 finalists with a song. And he was selected again this time with this song. And so he'll go there next month. So as you listen to it, let yourself be flooded with the inspiration for these times and honor his gift of creativity, and maybe send out ripples across the ocean that they will be touched by this song as well. But know that this is his unique gift. And each of us, the playing here this morning, the singing, the taking care of the grounds, we all share in the way that we're called to share. So this is called Love Lifts Me High, and it's sung by Liddy, who was a student of his at Piedmont, and is hopefully going to be able to get a visa to go over there and sing it as well. So, it's still connected. Sometimes it goes away on me. Oh, it's connected.
When I look up to the mountain, standing tall against the sky, my heart is filled with wonder, and my thoughts are lifted high. When I think about our children growing up in troubled days, I hold on to hopes for freedom, and that love will lead the way. Love lifts me up high. Loving's all we need to do. Love lifts me up high, and the miracle of life comes shining through. When I hear a newborn baby, smell the flower in the spring, I have hopes for peace and harmony, and my heart begins to sing. When I see the children playing, hear their laughter on the breeze, I remember precious moments. They're in everything I see. I see, and love lifts me up high. Loving's all we need to do. Love lifts me up high. There is love in everything we see and do. And love lifts me up high. Loving's all we need to do. Love lifts me up high. There is love in everything we see and do. There is love in everything we see and do.
So, that was how his gift comes through. And that didn't take me by surprise either, because I like the songs that come through him, and I think you all are beginning to know my love of music, and I was so excited to hear next week will be full of it, and I'm hoping I can come. But then a piece of inspiration really took me by surprise. I was led to watch John McCain's memorial service a week ago. And in the past, I wasn't a very political person, so I don't really know why that called to me, but I knew a few things about his life. You know, the prisoner of war, and that he was a senator, and I knew how he'd stood up for what he believed when it was against what his party was for. And that all, spoke to me, so I watched it. And I was so touched. I'm still talking about it over a week later and thinking about it and living into it and seeing what it has to say to me. And one of the things that his daughter Megan said was his life was defined by love. And that's what we're all about here, aren't we? to allow that living presence, that love that is there for us to tap into, to gain strength from, to live from wisdom from. That's what we're all about. And she talked about that with all of what he did. And it wasn't about politics, was it? It was about his values, that he lived in some of the most harsh experiences of his life. His love of country, his love of integrity, even those 5 years when he was a prisoner of war. And again, I was so touched and thought, if he can do it in these times, in those times in his life, I have to be able to do it in these times in my life. And maybe each of us have been called to this time exactly to bring our creativity, our love, our integrity, our gift, whatever it is, to speak our truth in our world today. And the two quotes, and I want to make sure I say it right, but the Hemingway quote. Today is only one day in all the days that will ever be. But what will happen in all the other days that ever come will depend on what you do today. Every day is so precious to bring our gifts, our integrity, our values alive with how we show up, with is what Eckhart Tolle says, to bring our presence to just what's in front of us. Over and over again. And then Roosevelt says, that's daring greatness. It might be something big, and it might be something small, but it all adds to the whole. And this day is so important to the consciousness that then we will bring to the future, to tomorrow, and the tomorrow after that. I passed out a vision statement. Just a minute, let me get it. Who doesn't have one? Get one just so I don't see it. I shared it with you last week, and I made little copies of it in case it speaks to you. I love to say it every morning as I greet my day, because that's about bringing my integrity to the day and surrendering it to God. It's about bringing and honoring the creative process of love wanting to flow through me to my day, to every little interaction. It's so simple. It's so simple, but it's not always easy. Sometimes it is, like being here together, but sometimes it pulls us to our depths of standing in our truth when we don't want to say something that we know we need to. And so I'll read it one time, and then I'd like you to read it, or to say it out loud with me. I am a spiritual being, awakening to God's love within, creating, living, and sharing heaven on earth. Is that not what we're about? Is that your journey? Don't read it if that's not who you are. Please say it with me if it is. I am a spiritual being, awakening God's love within, creating, living, and sharing heaven on earth. Oh, a deep breath of letting that integrate. That's what we're called to do, to know. And then as we come together in community, that light can grow even brighter in our world and send out stronger ripples of this in consciousness clear across our planet. So again, I'll say it together as community, and then please say it with me. We are a spiritual community, awakening God's love within, together creating, living, and sharing heaven on earth. Please say it with me. We are a spiritual community, awakening God's love within, together creating, living, and sharing heaven on earth. And again, just a moment to own that truth. That is what we're about. And John McCain's creed was that all people are created equal. And so we're holding that for all people around our planet, not just the ones that look like us or believe like us, but to hold it for people that don't believe like us, and to be able to hold with strength and wisdom that piece of knowing that somewhere underneath it all, we all have that God seed. We were all created from this living presence of love. And to be able to hold that like He did and live it with our lives, with our families. Sometimes that can be the hardest if they have different beliefs and know us well. And sometimes it's very easy. That's what John McCain's memorial service did for me, was to really be willing to now hold stronger the beliefs, the values that I hold, and be willing to speak them kindly in all the places that come my way, even when I don't want to. Not to be a battering ram at all, but to just say, this is true for me. This is my truth. Can you hear it? And in that way we dare greatness. And a little thought that came to mind, dare and risk are sort of the same word. And the acronym for risk is we can do this more fully when we take time to remember who we are every day. Right? Remember that we are that radiant light of God. And then the I, to intend to show up that way, moment by moment, day by day, as that quote says. And then the S is to surrender our walk, not to have any preconceived notions of anything, but just to surrender and walk through what comes our way, to be this presence, to share this presence, to create this presence together. And then the K, maybe the most important, they're all important, is kindness. Because sometimes we forget. Sometimes I forget. And can we be kind to ourselves in those moments as well? This month is National Recovery Month. And I found unity the same time, and unity was my finding of my spirituality. You know, you all may have a different place of where your kernel of nugget of opening up to this wonderful God walk was. But I found unity, and I found the 12 steps, and I found therapy at the exact same time. And so recovery is an important word to me. And for me, it's always meant recovering who I am. Not what I was taught, but recovering that radiant light and letting go of all those places that I don't believe that I don't believe it about somebody out here, but being able to hold it with integrity to that's the truth. And so I called my son in Asheville, and who's knee-deep in the recovery program and doesn't mind at all that I share his journey. And I said, what does recovery mean to you? He says, Mom, you know what recovery is. And I said, well, I want to hear it in your words. And he said, Mom, it's living from our truth with a capital T and trusting God. Pretty simple. Living from that highest truth, from our integrity, from our values, from our principles, not from personality, not being pulled any more than if we can help it, out into that world of personality, but holding to it. And I said, thank you. And it got me thinking about all the way showers in my life. And I know last month I talked about Jesus, and he's a huge one in the world. But there's so many, aren't there? They're everywhere. John McCain was one for me as I listened to that memorial and heard more about him. He was a way shower of living by his values and his integrity. My kids are both way showers and for different reasons. Todd so surrendered to this program and being able to hold on to that truth as he spent 3 months in jail for something he did while under the influence. I was amazed at that walk. And he became my hero. Mom, trust God. Be the light wherever you are. My other son, who's not in the program, but lives his life defined by love, with very little possessions or what we would like to have for safety and security in our world, but shares that love with everybody he meets, and especially that little girl that I believe came here to save his life. And she sure is getting him to open to love in a deeper way, but it was always there. So we're all way showers, and we're being called today to be that way shower ourselves. Not to look to some big Messiah coming that's going to save us, but to bring our integrity, our values alive in whatever ways calls to us each day, one day at a time. The mantra of 12 steps, the Hemingway quote, "Today is only one day in all the days that will ever come. But how we live this one day will influence every day yet to be." And as we live it from that place defined by love, defined by our values, defined by our highest truth, then we are that way shower. And always being kind when we wobble. Because that's part of this human divine walk. At least it's been part of mine so far. And if I beat myself up in those places, then I can't hold for each of you and other people when you wobble. We all have to be able to wobble, but hopefully gain strength and wisdom through what we're inspired by day by day. So I'm going to put on another song. I want to tell you about one moment way short. I think I've mentioned her here before, but I called her yesterday. I call her Mama Louise. And she is a licensed Unity teacher up in Maine. And she's 93. And she's getting ready to make her transition. And so yesterday, when I was thinking about way showers in my life, I called her. Sometimes I can procrastinate those things, and I thought, you better not procrastinate this too much longer. And so I called her, and we had this lovely time together of just remembering some of the things, some of the ways she shared how she lived principle, and how it's touched me years later, the strength and the wisdom that she brought. And I always used to say, when I grow up, I want to be just like Mama Louise. And she was touched by the phone call. And then we prayed together. And do you see how simple it can be to be that blessing in our world, to live from our values, to take the time to remember and bless those that have touched us? And that was done so magnificently in McCain's memorial. So I'm going to put a song on for meditation, for going into meditation. And it's about teaching love. And we teach love by who we are. And then after the song, I'm just going to have a place of stillness. And I would invite you to think about who the way-showers have been in your life. Maybe the founders of this beautiful place here. Maybe some of you who sit here now. Maybe someone else. But send out blessings of who they've been in your life. And know that those blessings that you send out come back full circle to bless you as well in prayer. So in that time of blessing and remembering and honoring, we live that full circle of love. How simple is that? In consciousness first, that then we can take out into our walk.